kind of semi-breaking news where we're looking at a potential DHS shutdown because the Dems didn't vote for it. Hey, folks, you've joined me mid-conversation. I was just catching up with Allison, who had abandoned me for a week, but I have forgiven her. She was busy and I was busy, but I have her for 30 minutes. So I'll take 30 minutes of Allison over 0 minutes of Allison. Allison Gill, of course, is the Wonder Woman behind Mueller, She Wrote, and The Breakdown. She also is the host of the Daily Beans podcast, and she does fantastic videos for Midas on their YouTube channel. Breaking news as of about 30 minutes ago, Allison, we have a potential shutdown happening. Senate Democrats have blocked a measure to fund the Department of Homeland Security as lawmakers remained locked in a standoff that could shut down the agency this weekend. Of course, as we know, though, they already have the $75 billion from the big, beautiful bill, so they can continue their, if you will, reign of terror. Tom Homan, border czar, a human concrete, said or alleged earlier today that they're going to limit or scale back the ICE surge in Minnesota. I'll believe it when I see it. But your response to the latest news?
I think it's great. As you know, they had severed DHS from the rest of the spending package, which was great because it gave us leverage. But then there were talks like they might let John Thune stopgap DHS and fund it for another few weeks. He actually wanted to the end of the year, but the Democrats were like, no. And I thought they might end up doing another stopgap, but they haven't.
That's great.
And that is really, really good news. And we should always give credit where credit is due, because I know that we do go after some of these Senate Dems, especially leadership, quite a bit when it comes to these kinds of shutdown battles. So I'm very glad that they have at least held their ground on the 10 items, that they say need to change. Because as you said, Customs and Border Protection and ICE will continue to be funded through supplemental funding in the Big Ugly Bill during this DHS shutdown. And so there's no real way to defund that. They already tried. Bernie Sanders did an amendment, tried to add an amendment to the severance of DHS bill that would claw back that, at least the ICE funding. I don't think he put Customs and Border Protection in there, even though I screamed, put Customs and Border Protection in there. They have a $63 billion slush fund.
Absolutely.
But Sanders went ahead with that amendment. Every single Democrat voted for that amendment, but it didn't pass. 2 Republicans also voted for that amendment, including Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski, but it's a 60 vote threshold there. So they weren't able to add that amendment to claw back that funding. So sadly, ICE and Customs and Border Protection stay funded, even though they're again saying that they're drawing down Customs Border Protection operations in Minnesota. I don't believe them. I'll believe it when I see it.
Exactly.
But I am very impressed that they didn't cave on another stopgap funding bill for DHS for several weeks while they hash this out. They are actually standing their ground on those 10 issues. And, we've gone over those 10 multiple times. I don't think we need to revisit that. But to hear, even on the Hill today, Todd Lyons is testifying to say that, if we take their masks off and give them IDs, people will dox them, but in the face of the fact that there are multiple criminals posing
That's right.
as ICE officers, is what makes this incredibly dangerous. And that's those are some of the things that Democrats are demanding here if ICE is funded. Now, the other piece of good news is that even though ICE and CBP are funded through the Big Ugly Bill, it's actually really difficult to move that money. And as they stay open and operating, that money in the Big Ugly Bill gets depleted, right? Because they can't spend their regular budget during this shutdown. So there is a bit of a defunding aspect to this, in that we're draining that slush fund in the Big Ugly Bill. But, it's $130 billion total. It's going to take a while to do that. But with all of these new concentration camps that they're trying to get,
Literally.
that are being by the way, rejected even in rural MAGA country, even in districts that Trump won by 25 points, is making that very, very difficult to do. So I'm very, very glad to see this.
Yeah, I give credit where credit's due, and I'm also very critical. And I just posted right before Allison came on. Well done, Senate Democrats. I give credit where credit's due, folks, because they held the line. And in the last 2 weeks, some of that mealy mouth type of concessions that Schumer and Jeffries were kind of teasing out there, you saw a backlash, not just from Senate Democrats and House Democrats, but also from the base, also from the polling, right? People are sick and tired of it. And furthermore, when it comes to the polling, Donald Trump and Republicans are just getting trounced left and right. It is bad for them. They're even losing white voters, folks. If MAGA loses white voters, DEFCON 1, if you're Republican. In the special elections, they're losing all across the board. They realize they have overreached on immigration. However, they cannot extricate themselves from it, Allison, because you have a white nationalist, Stephen Miller, still in the White House. This is literally their reason of existence, their reason of being. And I'm sure you saw, I don't know if you saw that latest news came out last night. The New York Times says that it was, we talked about it, that we most likely thought that the Department of Labor and DHS were being run by these 21-year-old groypers, their social media accounts. Well, they named them. It's a 21-year-old groyper who got, folks, he's the one who posted the white nationalist stuff from the Department of Labor. Guess what? He just got a promotion and now he's in DHS. So I just want you all to have your eyes wide open. You replace a Bavino with Tom Homan. Tom Homan comes and projects and says this BS. You still got Stephen Miller. They're stuck. Their backs are against the wall. And now we saw, the small little victories in this seventh layer of hellscape that we live in is that earlier today in the 4-hour Senate hearing, the top immigration official, Todd Lyon, who's the acting chief of ICE, acknowledged that Renee Nicole Good and Alex Preddy did not appear, Allison, to be domestic terrorists.
Yeah. And there's all sorts of admissions going on, right? I just read something about how Stephen Miller said that they were domestic terrorists, that they were gonna Alex Preddy was going to cause maximum damage and massacre law enforcement, and they just had to admit that that was not true. So it's there are if we're racking up wins today for Democrats, we've actually had a few
Yeah.
over the last couple of weeks that have been pretty significant. So there's that. There's also in ICE news, Judge Boasberg has ordered the return of the men sent to Seacoast, Venezuela. They were traded away eventually, um, uh, even though they claimed in court they didn't have, con- you know, constructive custody of these folks. But they now have to get due process according to Judge Boasberg, and that's in the original case, the original Enemies Act case where they were trying to return Abrego Garcia, called JGG, right? And four other plaintiffs on that. But because of the initial nationwide injunction, it included and led to, and that sort of spun off the Abrego Garcia case. But now they have to get due process, whether it's in whatever country they're in or if they want to return to the United States for due process. According to Boasberg, I'm sure this will be appealed. They need to get due process. We still haven't got a decision from the Supreme Court on whether they think the Alien Enemies Act was used appropriately here. This might lead to that.
It was not.
No, no. But this Supreme Court, remember, and they said in their facilitate the return of Abrego Garcia decision that the president, the executive branch, needs to have due deference in matters of foreign affairs, which obviously the Trump administration is using that simple sentence to justify everything they're doing, boat strikes in Venezuela. You name it. They're saying, oh, we had the election interference stuff, the raid on Fulton County, foreign election interference. It's foreign affairs. You have to give us due deference, due regard and deference in matters of foreign affairs. So there have been quite a few voter rolls. Michigan, they can't have them. They've sued 23 states for their voter rolls, and I think there are so far 4 cases that have been blocked, the DOJ trying to get those. So we're racking up quite a few wins this week. It's kinda nice to see they feel like they come in waves.
No, but we gotta take them, right? And I wanna concentrate on the wins before we get to the, of course, the shit show. Another win, just from about 2 hours ago, is that Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of, what is it? Defense, War, abusing women, he has launched a vendetta against Senator Mark Kelly, and we just have, I don't know if you saw this from 2 hours ago, a judge, one of the most conservative
Judge
Republican judges,
Leon,
Judge
"Horse
Leon.
feathers. It's horse feathers," he says.
Yeah, George and I see this from national security counselors. I wanna read their Blue Sky post because he goes, "Hegseth has radicalized Richard Leon, the most conservative, partisanly Republican judge not appointed by Trump that I've ever met." And then Chris, Geidner, who does fantastic work at Law Dork, he says, "Breaking: Judge Leon blocks Hegseth's efforts to punish, Senator Kelly." And what he wrote was, this is Judge Leon, "This court has all it needs to conclude that defendants have trampled on Senator Kelly's First Amendment freedoms and threaten the constitutional liberties of millions of military retirees." This is encouraging to me because we've seen an entire right wing movement, Allison, work in lockstep to promote their God King, Lizard King, Daddy Donald Trump. The Supreme Court, of course, leading the way, essentially getting him get out of jail free card a year and a half ago, and essentially giving him absolute immunity for his criminal conduct. But now you're seeing the cracks, and these cracks are coming with these judges who are like, nah, I'll be the stopgap. So I'm going to take this as a win.
I am too, and you left the best part of that quote on the tail end. The judge says, "After all, as Bob Dylan said, you don't need to be a weatherman to know which way the
Yeah,
wind
there you go.
blows."
To know where the wind is blowing. That,
Don't need to be a
folks,
weatherman to know which way the wind blows.
folks,
Yeah,
that
I
is a right wing judge trolling and talking shit. That's talking smack in judge speak.
yeah, and to quote Dylan, for Judge Leon, that's pretty fascinating. I wish I could interview, like, maybe when he retires, I'll be like, "Tell me." 'Ca Horse feathers and Bob Dylan, like, this is pretty amazing. Get 12 exclamation points in this ruling. If you're For those who count Judge Leon's exclamation points, he has a penchant for using them. Um, yeah, so that Hegseth ruling is great. We also had, um, let's see, the Boasberg ruling, but unfortunately, something that is bothering me is that, the House passed the SAVE.
I was about to get there. I mean, I wanted to talk some good news, but now let's just go to the bad news. And the SAVE Act, of course, and then with can you tell them the Democrat who joined in this
Oh, who was the Democrat who joined in?
Cuellar,
Oh, of course. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The guy who
the same Cuellar,
the
folks.
pardoned guy. Yeah.
Same Cuellar who was pardoned by Donald Trump because him and his wife allegedly accepted foreign bribes. The same Cuellar who was anti-abortion. The same Cuellar after he was pardoned by Donald Trump. Some of the Democrats were like, "Come back, Cuellar," and the same Cuellar who joined the 6 other alleged "quote unquote" centrist Democrats to vote for DHS funding after the murder of Renee Nicole Good. He joined Republicans in this blatant, shameless, egregious, dangerous voter suppression. Can you tell people about the SAVE Act?
It basically, is a show me your papers to vote, situation. It's gonna disenfranchise, anybody who's had a name change, which mostly, are women, particularly married women. You're going to have to now well, I don't think this is gonna get past the Senate, at least that's my hope, because it
Really?
is.
Why do you say that? Why do you who do you think is gonna come out, as far as Republicans go? Because I think people are realizing this is gonna disenfranchise their voters, older
You need
voters, rural voters, poor voters.
Yeah, but you need cloture, you need 60 votes.
Yeah, they won't get it. They won't.
Mm-mm. So, that at lea and Fetterman only gets 1 vote, so I'm not too worried. But, you've got the Hassans and the Cortez Mastos and the Rosens and the Shaheens who like to vote for these kinds of things, like the Laken Riley Act or whatever, but,
Yep.
it basically means that you have to have, like, a passport in order to vote, and, everybody's like, "Well, not everybody can drop $180 for a passport."
Many
Most
Americans do not have a passport, folks, nor have they used their passport.
No, a lot of people can't even get, a driver's license. But that wouldn't even work for the SAVE Act. You would need like a real ID, right? Which is more expensive and harder to get. And you need a birth certificate, which if you don't have, you have to pay to get. It's a poll tax on mostly Democrats.
Yeah, that's exactly. And now what they're realizing, folks, even though what we're witnessing is their overreach in order to protect their corrupt friend of pedophile, maybe even a pedophile king daddy, Donald Trump, is their overreach is harming them. The gerrymander has turned into a dummy-mander in Texas, as Latinos and independents who are registered Republicans are, wait for it, voting for Democrats. So a gerrymander has become a dummy-mander. If they go after mail-in votes, which, by the way, Donald Trump has used and is not illegal, it will also hurt, wait for it, Republicans. And now they're realizing this blatant, and I'm glad you brought up the poll tax, because this is what happened with Black people. This is literally what they did. A literacy test, you have to pay, right? Anything and everything to make it impossible for them to vote. This is literally what they're doing with the SAVE Act. And now they're realizing, wait. Some of my constituents and the people who vote for Republicans, they don't have this type of ID. They don't have the time to get this type of ID. They don't have the money to get this type of ID. We might actually, in addition, because their end goal, like you said, is to actually disenfranchise Black voters and Democratic voters, and what they assume are poor Democratic voters, they're going to screw their own voter base, folks. And with the enthusiasm gap, I don't know if these Republicans will go out of their way to spend the money to get this type of voter ID. I am sure that many women and independents and actually Democrats, if indeed this passes, which inshallah it won't, I don't think it'll get to 60, they'll probably be motivated to say, all right, mother effers, we'll go get this. So, but that's something terrible, folks. That's how desperate the Republicans are. But also speaking about them going for voter suppression, I don't want to forget, Allison, that a week and a half ago, our director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, for some strange reason, joined the FBI in the raid of the Fulton County election office where they got the 2020 original ballots. And then Tulsi Gabbard put Donald Trump on the phone where he talked to the FBI.
Mm-hmm.
And then a
Yeah,
couple of days
that's
later, Donald Trump said, we should have Republicans take over state elections.
yeah, totally normal, right? But I don't, it's going to be interesting to see whether the Supreme Court thinks that the executive branch has any role to play in elections. I know a lot of conservative circuit court judges have said absolutely not. But even kind of bigger than, well, that Gabbard being there is because they're looking for foreign interference. We found out later, we were kind of proselytizing that Maduro was going to admit to some sort of foreign election interference, but we learned, this week that Gabbard had also seized voting materials in Puerto Rico in order to investigate Maduro. She was investigating Maduro for foreign election interference, but she shouldn't be taking part in any law enforcement thing. Generally, the DNI just gets a report from law enforcement about those types of things.
Well, she hides those reports, as you know, Allison.
Right, because the whistleblower, I just did an interview Sunday with Andrew Bakai, the whistleblower's lawyer,
Oh, fantastic.
and 45 minutes we talked. We talked about what that underlying report was, why it's so classified. He said it's bigger than the Zelensky call that was hidden by then DNI Ratcliffe.
Wow.
Um,
Can you give, I mean, we've talked about it on the left hook, but can you just
Excuse
give
me,
people, can you give people a cliff notes? Uh,
DNI McGuire, not Ratcliffe. Back in the first administration. Yeah, sure. So there was a NSA intercepted a call between two foreign bad guys who were talking about somebody close to the White House. And Tulsi Gabbard got that report, and instead of disseminating it to the proper channels to NSA and to the people in the intelligence community, she put mine only for me on it. She was like, my Gabbard's eyes only, and stashed it away and hid it so that nobody could see it. And not because of its classified nature, but because it's politically embarrassing, which is exactly the same thing that happened to the Zelensky call. You'll remember
there you
they
go.
stashed it into that code word classified system.
But she
And
did
said
show it to Susie Wiles, of the chief
she
of
did.
staff of the Trump administration.
She talked to Susie Wiles about it. But then, so a whistleblower filed a report that she hid this thing. She didn't disseminate it properly, and that some agency failed, probably the NSA failed to make a criminal referral to the Department of Justice about something. And back during the Zelensky call, DNI McGuire, despite the inspector general for the intelligence community, his name was Atkinson at the time, despite him saying it's urgent and credible and needs to go to Congress. Um, and you have, from that point on, I think you have 3 weeks to send it to Congress. It took McGuire, he delayed it for a month. Now, Gabbard delayed this after it was told, by the previous ICIG, the Joe Biden holdover, who was then fired promptly, told that this whistleblower, yeah, you can go to Congress. I can't determine the credibility of your complaint, but I would call it urgent, which is the thing that allows you to go talk to Congress about it. Um, she was then Tulsi installed somebody to watch her, who then I think came in and said, this is not a credible report. So if you read any um, news out there, any media taking their word for it and saying that the counts were not credible, that the complaint wasn't credible, or the two complaints were not credible, don't buy that. And Andrew Buckeye tells us why. It's because Tulsi installed someone to babysit Tamara Johnson, who was eventually fired and then replaced by the current ICIG, who has not yet been. No, he was confirmed, but like right along party lines. So real sketchy dude. But anyway,
No,
she
no,
sat.
I've tried my
She held
best. Continue, continue.
The first guy delayed the Zelensky call for a month, and Tulsi Gabbard sat on this for 8 months
There you
before it
go.
was transmitted to Congress. So
There you go. And folks, I posted this article. I think it came out on the Guardian twice. We've talked about it on the Left Hook. I'm going to keep at it. I think at least once a week. This is a huge scandal. This should be in normal times, Allison. Heads should roll. In normal times, there should be investigations. In normal times, people should be impeached. This threatens our national security. What is Tulsi Gabbard and the Trump administration hiding? Why didn't they share this information with our national security? Why isn't it being investigated? Because most likely it implicates the Trump administration and someone very close to the Trump administration. If I had to guess, it's just me speculating.
Elon Musk.
Yeah, that foreign intelligence was probably Russia. Just throwing it out there, if I had to guess. And I think we have to keep our eyeballs on this. There's a lot of balls that are juggling, and we have to
And what
keep.
if it's about Gabbard?
What's that?
I said, what? And what if it's about what if the person that they were talking about close to the White House is Tulsi Gabbard?
And
I
Russia,
mean, so
uh,
um,
folks.
that's-
Folks, and then also there's about 9,000 people are asking real quick. I want to ask Allison one more question because she has to bounce early today. Um,
we got
I,
9,000 people. Holy cannoli!
but
Hi,
I don't know. Something's up with Substack. So yesterday, we get 2,000, 2,500, 3,000, which is a lot for us, but it's gone to like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9,000. I don't know if it's bots. Something's either happening with the Substack algorithm, or I believe they've opened up this to, I think they've gone on Apple TV, on digital TV. So maybe they count the views, folks. People are tuning in on, like, say, Apple TV or
wow.
digital TV. I think that's what it is. Because I know now Substack is an app that can be downloaded for these smart TVs. That's what makes sense to me. But if not, doesn't matter. Whoever's watching, please
Well,
watch. I wanted to ask this question. Yesterday, I think, was another piece of good news, even though it was distressing. In that, Pam Bondi got her ass served because Pam Bondi was exposed in front of the world of clearly taking part in the biggest political cover-up in modern history, Allison. And clearly, she could not lie her way out of it. Clearly, she had no answers as to why Secretary of Commerce Lutnick is still in the White House, why names were redacted, why Massey and Khanna were able to find these 6 names after only 2 hours, why there's been no investigations, even though heads are rolling in the UK. And she didn't even bother, folks, to turn around and look at the survivors who were in the courtroom. Your response to that spectacle that you saw yesterday?
well, I think, and I've written my Congress friends on the committees and say, from now on, don't bother asking Trump appointees any questions.
Mm,
Just take your 5 minutes, make your point, then force the Republicans to use their time to allow them to answer, and then just shout real quick interruptions every now and again.
yeah, I
And
agree.
I take that page from Jasmine Crockett. She did wonderfully. But I think the big story coming out of that testimony yesterday, which was just a train wreck, I think everybody saw right through it, is that the Department of Justice is spying on Democratic members of Congress.
Mm.
We saw some of the notes in Bondi's burn book, and she had a list of Representative Jayapal's search terms. When you sit down at one of those 4 DOJ terminals to search the unredacted Epstein files, they kept all that data and all that information in their search terms and gave it to Pam Bondi. Tell me how
As one
that
does. As one does.
Tell me how that, first of all, number one, how does that help the survivors? And number two, I seem to remember very recently Republicans freaking the fuck out, pardon my French,
Mm.
about having their phone records surveilled by Jack Smith. Just the numbers and who called and when, they're called toll records, and called that spying.
And Lindsey
Uh,
Graham wants $1 million.
yeah, they want $1 million. They want to be able to sue for $1 million each. So how is that different from what the Department of Justice did when they kept the search terms and made lists for Pam Bondi in her burn book for when she testified? That is pretty insane, and it looks like Democrats are using that
As we
and
should.
talking about it and saying we were spied on. And I think that that's a perfect counter argument. Anytime another Democrat brings up Jack Smith's toll records, which were obtained legally and by policy, where these probably were not. I'm not quite sure. I mean, they are DOJ computers, but the phone records were the senators were on government phones, so they're government issued devices all. So it'll be interesting to see going forward the next time and any time one of these Republicans brings up these toll records to just crush them with the fact that they are spying on Democratic lawmakers without proper warrants and policies and subpoenas. So that, I think, is one of the bigger stories that came out. Like you said, just refusing to apologize. Even Kristi Noem turned around and apologized to the people that were, improperly detained by ICE, like the Marine dad whose sons were there and the veteran wife whose husband had been detained. She Puppy Killer apologized, but Pam Bondi
Even the puppy killer apologized.
couldn't bring herself to do it and not even fake it. Like, she could have turned around and said, yeah, every single one of you, give me your information, give me your lawyer's information. We'll make sure that you get contact with the Justice Department. She didn't
She didn't
even
even turn around, folks.
fake it.
Because this is who she is. This is who they are. They're revealing their true hateful hearts, and hate ages you terribly. And I think Pam Bondi, folks, we've been saying it. Allison and I have been saying it for a year when we talk, and she's been saying it independently. I've been saying it independently. This Justice Department is. I always say it's the Trump's Justice Department, and then I always say Justice Department in quotes, and then I say Pam Bondi's sole job as Attorney General is to be Donald Trump's defender and prosecutor against all of his critics. That's it. That's your job. That was laid bare. I think it was very embarrassing for her. I know it pissed off I know it pissed off independents and some Republicans. And folks, the Epstein files is the biggest political cover up. It is the big club we have to use to attack Donald Trump. Because folks, heads are rolling in the UK, heads are rolling in Europe. No investigations in America. But the Justice Department has asked to investigate the widow of Renee Nicole Good. Lev Parnas was there yesterday. He's in the chat. I'll bring him on in a second. But before I do, if he wants to come on, Allison, shamelessly promote yourself. I promise I'll get you out by 3.
Well, I have some more time.
Oh, great.
And before we bring Lev on, I wanted to bring up the failed indictment of the 6 members of Congress for
Yes,
recording the video.
fantastic.
That is extremely embarrassing. And normally a no bill is rare enough, but this was a shutout, Waj. I don't know if you
Yeah.
saw this
No, I
news.
did.
0 grand jurors voted to indict. That's very. I don't think. Steve Vladeck was like, we don't have the data of grand jury votes, but he said, I'd be willing to say that this has probably never happened before. At least I've never heard of it.
Well, in
Definitely
law school, you know what they
unprecedented.
taught us? What they taught us in law school is you can indict a ham sandwich. Getting a grand jury indictment, folks, is not that difficult. So the
Unless
fact
you're Janine Pirro.
yeah, unless you're Janine Pirro, because even the grand jury was there, they're like, nah. So the fact that they didn't even get a even the grand jury folks, they're like, we're more comfortable indicting this ham sandwich than letting you proceed with this bullshit case against these elected officials.
And they can't even indict a ham sandwich. The sandwich guy got a no bill. So, I mean, here we are. And I want to end on this because I couldn't write. I did comedy for a long time. I was a comedy writer for a long time. And I couldn't write this if I tried. I would be kicked out of a writer's room if I pitched this storyline anywhere. There is a possible measles super spreader event at a March for Life rally.
That's right.
And I can't impress upon you enough, Waj, how just too on the nose that is. That these anti-vaxxers, pro-life, claim to be pro-life anti-vaxxers, had a march, anti-abortion march, and they have all been exposed to the measles. I couldn't write it if I
It's
tried.
like a scene from the Bible or the Old Testament. It's like literally, it's like you can't make this shit up, and because it's real life, and that's why I never called them the pro-life party. I've been using pro-death march ever since for 10 years. It is a pro-death movement, and in all seriousness, not only has measles now literally spreading. Measles, by the way, folks, was essentially eradicated thanks to vaccines. Also, we have the fear of polio coming back. Also, influenza during the flu season. Also, COVID's around, and now, folks, and now measles outbreak at the Dilley concentration camp in Texas, where there are children, some citizens apparently, some legal immigrants begging to be released, and diseases were also spreading and deliberately spread in concentration camps during Nazi Germany.
Hmm. Yeah. And that's going to continue. Especially if they open these 10,000 person warehouses for detainees. By the way, which are being equipped with in the somebody shared the contract specs. They're being equipped with incinerators for human waste, human biohazard.
Wow.
So that's quite frightening. Um, so yeah, the ICE needs to be defunded. CBP needs to be defunded. I'm glad we can bring it around to how we started. That the Senate, the Democrats have refused to continue to fund DHS, whether it's long term or even a short stopgap, to continue negotiating on these terms. They have the leverage. I'm glad they're using it. They need to get exactly what they've demanded. And just a couple more stories before I let you go, Waj, that
No,
I
I'm the
think
one. I
everybody
wanted to let you go, but stay.
just a couple headlines that I think everybody should know about. New research shows that less than 2% of the 400,000 immigrants that have been detained by ICE and Customs and Border Protection, less than 2% are murderers and rapists. So when
Yep.
Pam Bondi holds up her parade of baddies, it's completely disingenuous. The Gateway Tunnel, a judge has said that Trump can't withhold funding for the Gateway Tunnel. That's the one where Trump tried to go to Chuck Schumer and said, if you change Dulles to the Trump airport and Penn Station to the Trump train station, I'll go ahead and release the funding for the Gateway project. But a judge has done that. Um, and the GOP defected in the House on the tariffs as
Yep.
well.
That was a big,
So
yeah,
that
absolutely.
big
That was big
loss.
news. These are big losses, folks. And because I think these cracks, look, yes, GOP sucks. It's a Republican cover up. The guardians of the pedophiles. We know. They see where the wind is a blowing. They see the polls. They
You
see
don't need to be a weatherman to know
no,
which
they
way the
see what
wind.
happened in Texas. They see what's happening in the special elections. They saw what happened in freaking Miami, where Cubans voted for a white non-Latina woman as the mayor of Miami. They see where the economy is going. They're seeing the backlash to ICE. That does not mean in any way, shape, or form we should trust them, but you're seeing small cracks. That's what we're saying.
Yeah.
And these are losses that add up. Death by 1,000 cuts. And even in this week, we just gave you a rundown of some of these victories. And we have to take solace in some of these victories and lift up these victories and then put pressure, and not just pressure, right? It's like stick and carrot, right? So I'm the stick guy when it comes to the Democratic establishment. I also give him the carrot. I gave it to him today, right before Allison came on Blue Sky. I'm giving it to him right now. Well done, Senate Democrats. Hold the line. Hold the line. CBP, ICE needs to be defunded. You need to go scorch earth against these mother effers. You need to go blitz, smash mouth football. Allison, shamelessly promote yourself, please.
If everybody wouldn't mind. I would love it if you would check out the Daily Beans podcast. It's free wherever you get your podcasts. We've been nominated for a GLAAD award. It's news that, you can stay informed and also stay sane. There's no Scott Jenningses on our
You see
programs.
that shit yesterday where even Abby Phillips was like, "I'm done."
Oh, good. No, I didn't see that. Good.
She just got yeah. He just went on this, "Well, save act, blah, blah, blah," and you're like, "Are you saying like, just implying that black people are dumb and like racist and stuff?" And then the whole panel, even Abby's like, "I'm done." And then even today, Abby on Twitter responded to him posting the clip.
Good. So, listen to the Daily Beans. Again, it's free. All my content is free. If you're able to and you have the means, you can become a paid subscriber on my Substack. But all the content is free regardless because, like Waj, I'm a terrible capitalist. But I also think that everyone should have access to the news and information that they need about what's
Absolutely.
going on with this regime, regardless of their income or funding or ability to, pitch in any amount of money. So, thank you. I do have a new video podcast too called Beans Talk. That is Dana Goldberg and I, and you can catch that on the MSW Media YouTube channel. So subscribe to that
Allison
for free as well.
Allison does not sleep, ever. But that's why I was so happy and sad that, the last 3 days, I'm like, "Allison wanna come on," and she was busy. I'm like, "What? You're not how can you be busy?" She goes, "I'm taking the day off. I'm doing this." I'm like, "No, but yes, but no. How dare you?" Thank you so much, Allison. It's Mueller, She Wrote. It's a breakdown. I posted the links. Please subscribe. And I think I'll let you go on this one. I do think that, our model of keeping everything for free, unfortunately, I think some people are pissed off at us and Substack, but they're like, "Damn it! All right, we'll also take away paywalls." So I know. You know what? Everyone has their own models, but we depend on the kindness of all the people watching. If you have a few bucks, give it to Allison. If you have a few more, I have a special on. It's 25% off on the left hook. It all helps us. We're completely independent, which is why we can speak without fear or favor. We can praise the right people. We can push the people, Democrat or Republican, it doesn't matter. And I think this is why we've built up this type of readership and viewership because you all respect the independence. Thank you, Allison. Take care of
Thanks.
yourself, folks. Lev wanted to come on, but he's going through airport security, so I'll let him go. And then everyone else, this is the Left Hook. I'll put a link. Subscribe if you can. It's lefthook.substack.com/special. It's $3.75 for this month. $3.75 forever. But if you don't have the money, it's okay. Just subscribe, folks. Thank you for the 10,000 people watching. For those who are tuning in late, this will be up later on Allison's The Breakdown and on the Left Hook. Be kind, be informed, and please, oh, please don't be a fascist. Thank you, Allison.
Thanks.